questions, comments, anything you'd like to say to us, we'd love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV. In the control room this morning, we've got Tara and about 7 cameramen who are doing various bits and pieces. On the other vehicle, we've got Brent and Andrew. And behind camera this morning, we have Viam. That's his beautifully woolen gloved hand. And my name is James, in case you didn't know. And if you're a first-time viewer, you're especially welcome. We're sitting here in an ancient sea with to the east, where that glow of the beautiful sun is about to come up, the rhyolite mountains of the Lubombo, and to the west, the great expanse of the Drakensberg escarpment that extends 1,000 kilometers down the escarpment of South Africa. This ancient sea that we find ourselves in is called the Lowveld, and a little piece of it on which we are going to explore this morning is called Djuma, and a little bit to the west of us called Arathusa, part of an expanse of 3.5 million hectares of untrammeled wildlife wilderness. So this morning, our plan is to head down. We're going to check the hyena den quickly. There is one over here. Quite a lot of tracks going in and out, but because the cubs are pretty much old enough to be on their own now, I don't know that it's going to be active. Then there was tracks of a leopard heading down to the south. So we'll just follow up on those for a little while. My main intention is to check the southern boundary to see if the Styx pride of lions hasn't come back onto Djuma, and if they have, we'll follow them. If they haven't, well, we'll see what else the Kruger National Park has to give us this morning. No doubt it will be a lot. Thanks very much for everything, all the comments and questions last night. Very stimulating drive. Let's have the same again this morning. Here we go. For those of you who are worried about the temperature, Viam and I reckon it's about 12 degrees Celsius, which I think is about 54 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're just going to have a look in here to see if we can't find perhaps a few hyenas. They managed to tear off the door yesterday of our rubbish dump. So they're quite powerful things. The door is quite a heavy wooden thing, and they then dragged out the dustbins and basically made an enormous mess. Pretty warm. Temperature's not that cold for winter, but what happens with our weather systems seems to be that when there is a hyena there, yeah? See if you can spot him there, and then we'll move a bit closer. There's a young hyena at the den. I've managed to park him right behind. There we go. Isn't that lovely? That's a youngster. So I'm just going to approach quite slowly. And approach quite slowly just to make sure there are a few of them there. That's wonderful. Aha! Great stuff. Just approach slowly so that they don't panic and rush off and disappear into the hole that is in that termite mound. Oh, there's a whole lot going on there. There's an adult, 2 adults, and 3 cubs. Very inquisitive. Stop here to stop. Okay, Jim? That's great. I'm just going to contact Brent quickly. Go ahead, Brent. Oh, this is just so special. Probably the same at the hyena den. Affirmative. Isn't it wonderful how they're so close to the front of the vehicle we can't even see them? So these little things are, I'm not sure how old they are, but they look to me to be about 3 or 4 months old. Come on. So they scuttled off when I moved. And the danger here is that they'll pull the oil cap off the wheel. Now that little tail sticking up like that is a sort of an indication of a bit of alarm. Very inquisitive, and they lose this inquisitiveness when they become adults, but not the confidence. They do remain very confident. And that running away, they've just noticed Via moving on the back, and that's why they're running off. Oi. I don't want him to remove the oil cap. Good morning. Hello, little fellow. I suspect, now, hyenas are very difficult to sex, or spotted hyenas are. Oh, look at that picture. But because there are 3 youngsters here, I suspect that there are some males amongst them. If there were only females, there would have been probably siblicide. The females, if they're born together as twins, they're normally only 2 born, so it's quite unusual that there are 3 here, and they look to be the same age. 2 females, 1 female will definitely kill the other. And they normally then take over as the matriarch of the clan. So I suspect one of these 2 is a young male, and one is a female. What are you chaps doing on that side? As soon as they feel me moving, they go run about. So the Land Rover's got a little oil cap on the edge of the wheel, and young hyenas like this seem to home in on it and pull it off. Let's play with a stick rather. Oi! Didn't like my clicking noise. That's interesting. There may be... Just trying to see what that little cub is trying to do there. So you can see the one suckling, and the other one, the one that was removing our oil cap, is now playing with that other adult. I wonder if anyone can tell me, if any of the viewers know when these 2 were born, because it looks to me, now that I look at them, that the one suckling is possibly younger than these other 2. And that might be their mother that they're playing with now. Well, he's just taken the oil cap off. Lisa, thank you very much for your information. You said that they are 4 months old. Oi. Oi. He's about to pull the wheel off. Carol, go on. He's just homing in on that cap. Now there, now he's giving himself a fright. So, Lisa, thank you for that information, there being 4 months. Do you have any idea if there were 3 in the litter, which is quite a lot for hyena, or if there were 2? Right, thanks very much for that, Lisa. So, as I suspected, these 2 that are busy trying to tear the Land Rover apart are siblings, and the one with the other female there that we saw suckling is slightly younger. So, I'm going to postulate that these 2 that we're looking at now, horsing about the place, or hyenaing about the place, are one are brother and sister, or 2 males. They will not be, it's highly unlikely that there'd be 2 females. And the fact that the other one is on its own indicates that it may well be a female, and that it could have engaged in siblicide. It's unusual for them to only have 1 baby. So I suspect that some fate has befallen the siblings of that one. Like I say, if there are 2 females, they exhibit something called canism or siblicide, and canism comes from Cain and Abel. Hello, Tim in Arkansas. Nice question there. Thank you. You can see, you've obviously noticed that the adults are not reacting to them coming so close to us. And that is absolutely as you surmise, because they don't, they don't see us as a threat. But on foot it would be very different. So they don't associate the vehicle with a threat, Tim, but they do associate us on foot with a threat. So they wouldn't, if we arrived here, if we walked up here, the babies would probably disappear down the burrow. I suspect the adults would probably go off into the bush. If we then looked like we were going to try and get into the burrow, the adults may become a little angry and perhaps aggressive, but normally they'd all just run away if we came here on foot. They just don't associate anything with the vehicle, any danger with the vehicle. And especially after an interaction like this, you can imagine when these cubs grow up, they will be just as relaxed as the adults are. Isn't it wonderful seeing them play like this? Children's play, just like animal play, is such an important part of gaining strength and gaining coordination and fitness and gaining muscle mass. Hello, Safari. You are worried about one of the cubs' feet being swollen. I haven't seen any that are swollen. The hyena do tend to have a rather bow-legged appearance, and these 2 cubs looking fine fettle to me. Now we can see that little one there, much smaller. And now also coming to have a quick look. Not quite as confident. Here comes an adult. They will bully each other, and that tail up is a sign of kind of, not alarm, but definitely sort of tension, which is quite fun. This is wonderful. I've tried so often to come to this den, and I've never seen them behaving like this. It's fantastic. Hyenas are such great value. One of the most misunderstood animals in Africa. Look at this. The adult hasn't sensed something coming up. And you'll notice that the first thing the youngster do is run for the burrow. Obviously they're not too concerned. So look at that. Just look at those two there. Those two are a different age. And the little one, there is clearly younger now. You can see them beautifully framed there by Viam, who's doing his best to crane the camera over the side. Brenda and Virginia, you say one of them is a year old. I'm assuming you mean one of the bigger ones here. Certainly the cubs that we're looking at here are nowhere near a year old. It's possible that one of the adult-looking ones is about a year old, except that I'm pretty sure that they're both mothers. One the mother of the two, and the other the mother of the one. So, Brenda, if you've seen cubs sort of a year ago, I don't think that they are here. They still may well be part of the same clan, but they won't necessarily hang around the den. They'll be out foraging for most of the night and into the morning. So in my humble opinion, I wouldn't say that there are any year-old cubs here now. But definitely two mothers and two litters, which is a huge distinction between wild dogs and wolves and hyenas, for example. Only the alpha pair in a dog pack will breed. Gilly in Wisconsin, you ask a great question. Why do I think that Mother Nature made hyenas' backs so sloping? Well, Gilly, try and think of an antelope that has the same look. And your answer will sort of be apparent from that. They are sloping like that because it is an adaptation, much like a wildebeest, for long distance running. So they can go huge distances. Got one coming up here, having a look at my hand, which is hanging over the edge. You can't even see him. You get in there, Viam? No. He's right around the front. Sorry, Gilly. And the adaptation is that the sacrifice speed, so they're not nearly as fast as something like a leopard or perhaps even a wild dog. They are much bigger than wild dogs. But what it means is that they can run and run and run and run without getting tired. They get into that sort of loping canter and they can go for ages, probably much more than any other predator can. And that's a great adaptation if you want to scavenge. And indeed, some of the research into our own origins suggests that we gained this upright stance because we're actually excellent scavengers rather than hunters. We're not very fast compared to the animals out here, but we can move long distances. Tearing around. So the adults look to be moving along. I'm not sure. They're all behind us. Well, the two of them are behind us, walking away. And so I don't think these little ones are going to be out for much longer, but we're going to wait until they disappear. They're such excellent entertainment. So, Gilly, in summary, an adaptation for long-distance running. Just think of a wildebeest and the distances they have to cover in places like the Serengeti or the Mara, and you have a sort of idea of similar design. In fact, all the antelope that migrate big distances will generally have large forequarters and small hindquarters. Sabira Zumi, thank you for your question. You want to know, do we ever name clans of hyenas? Sometimes. I've never done it. I'm not a huge fan of naming at all, but I'm perfectly happy to accept that others like to do it. So in some areas, I've definitely heard of people naming clans, so they'll probably name them after an area. So this would be, let's pretend we're on a road called Philemon's Cut Line, so this could be Philemon's clan, for example, and there's certainly some areas where we do that. Here, not so much. I suppose it's because we don't spend nearly as much time with them as we do with the leopards or the lions, and so because they don't have that sort of iconic status, we tend not to know exactly the individual. So, for example, all of you who watch regularly are able to identify those leopards from that we see regularly from 100 different markings they have. I mean, you're far better at identifying them than I am. And likewise with the lions. When I first got here, the first lion pride I saw, I said to you all, I didn't know who they were, and you gave me the exact pride breakdown, and you told me who had had cubs when, and which restaurants they'd been to last night, and that sort of level of detail was quite astonishing. And so with the hyenas, we tend not to spend as much time with them. They're not, we're sitting here and they're being particularly confiding, but they tend not to hang around in a group like a lion pride does. So they're a little more complicated to assess in terms of their social dynamics. So, for example, I couldn't tell you how big this clan was, and I'm willing to bet that despite all the knowledge that our regular viewers have, they probably also couldn't tell you how big the clan was. So we know how old these cubs are, but we don't know how many adults there are in the clan. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I wonder if we shouldn't try and spend more time habituating them and following them more than we do. But, yeah, I don't know. Just going to wait here for a little while and see if they don't come out again. Hi, Billy in California. Another lovely hyena question. I'm going to answer it while we wait for them to come out. If we drive around, I think they definitely won't come out. The adults have just left, so I don't think they're going to do too much more, but they might like to play with us a little bit longer. So while I answer your question, we'll wait. Billy, you want to know, do the males have any sort of part in child rearing? Do they mate and then just leave, or what do they do? In hyena society, spotted hyena society, it's really quite interesting. The males are smaller than the females, so they don't dominate at all. And that's the only mammal that I know of in this area where that situation pervades. So the males will mate with the females, and they're much smaller than the females, and they'll remain within the clan. And the clan, the clan is a fairly solid social structure, but it's not always together, like I said, like the lions. So they will have very little to do with the cubs at all. Who the fathers are, we have absolutely no idea. I mean, it could be anyone from within the clan. And the matriarch will choose who she wants to mate with, and indeed, only one of these can be the matriarch, so one of the others is probably a secondary or lower ranking female. And who they mated with, we have no idea. Unlike, say, a lion pride, where the dominating males, you know who they are. I mean, it's very clear who they are. and normally you can tell who the father of the cubs is, but they also won't have anything to do with the raising of the cubs. So that's that story. The other thing I just did want to say quickly is that we tend to, and I'm guilty of this myself, we tend to focus on what we call the big five. The big five are lion and leopard and rhino and elephant and buffalo. And that term is actually, in 2015, something that we need to start dispensing with, I think. It's a hunting term that came from the notion that those were the 5 most dangerous animals to hunt. And around it has been built this entire ethos on safari where animals that are just as fascinating, just as big, just as sort of impressive, so say cheetah and wild dog, tend to be almost forgotten in some instances, not by our loyal viewers who tend to love everything from the fruit chafers up to the elephants, but certainly in that and this sort of aura that's been created around the big five, things like hyena have been neglected. They're fascinating. They're the second, I mean, they're far more, excuse me, they are far more dominant as a predator than leopards or wild dogs or cheetah, and yet we tend to kind of, yeah, if we can see them, we see them, and it's quite fun, but we don't pay a huge amount of attention to finding them. And I think, given the sort of negative rap that hunting's getting these days, we should be dispensing with the term big five and perhaps moving on to something like high-profile game, which is that's just sort of the exciting stuff to see. And hyenas must be part of that, as must hippo, as must giraffe. I mean, giraffe are the most fascinating animals. Right, I'm not going to trouble these chaps any further, and I think we'll probably press on from here, see what is going on. I think Brent is on some leopard tracks, so we'll probably leave them and see if we can't find some lions. Christian, Oklahoma, I think we've given you a misrepresentation because you can't quite get the perspective we have. You've said, why did the youngster go with the adults? All 3 youngsters actually went into the den. One of them came round from the side and in, so we couldn't pick that up on the camera. So the youngsters are all here. Just have a quick drive around here, but I suspect they'll be inside. Wesley, a fascinating question. You want to know, why are very young hyena cubs, why are they black in color? Just watch your head here, Björn. I think that they are black, Wesley, because it helps them to be less obvious when they're little, because they're more in and around they're more in the den and in the hole. And if any predator that comes and sticks their noses into the hole, I'll just get into a position where you can see the hole. Any predator that comes and sticks its nose into the hole is unlikely to be able to see them. They'll be active at night far more than they are during the day. And then as they come out of the hole and start to spend more and more time outside, that spotted color and spotted sort of pelage is much more effective as they start to move into the grass and into the vegetation, and it just helps with the dappled light. So the darker the animal is, they spend more time in the holes, and I think it's there's just a better coloration to be when you're on the edge of the hole of the den. It kind of mirrors that color, especially as any predator that comes through here for a hyena, and that would only be a lion or an extremely brave leopard and maybe a big pack of wild dogs, they see in black and white. And so that black color against the black background of a termite mound hole will be quite difficult to see. So that would be my guess, Wesley. Happy to take some debate on it, though, if you think that there might be another explanation. Thanks very much. Hello, Jim. As I read the other day, A good question is one without a simple answer. And yours falls into that category, as do so many of the questions we've had today. You want to know, do hyenas see in color? And the answer is no, not really. But I think it's a continuum. It's not necessarily like flicking the color off on your TV and the whole picture goes black and white. So there are two different kinds of cells in the eye, as far as I understand it. One called rods and one called cones, and one is responsible for seeing light, and the other is responsible for seeing color. And I'm just going to stop here while I explain this. And what happens is that the color, apparently the more cones you have, and I think the cones see color, if I might have it mixed up, but if I don't, the more cones you have, the fewer rods you can have. And the more color you have, the less, the smaller your ability to see or to differentiate light and dark is. So animals that see at night, or who have good nocturnal eyesight, will see, or the better your nocturnal eyesight, the less you will see in color, as far as I understand it. So the better your color vision, the worse your night vision. So we as human beings have terrible night vision compared with the cats. And some birds also have appalling night vision. So the most colorful birds obviously have to be able to see in color. And I've watched them try and land at night. And it's extremely difficult for a bird that is not nocturnal to land effectively and perch in the night time. So that's why we try and stop. We try not to disturb them in the trees at night, because if they take off, they do find it difficult to land. And I noticed that first, actually, with a friend of mine had a cockatiel that didn't live in a cage. And at night, if it was startled, it would fly around and around and around and not be able to land until you turned the light on. So, in summary, the worse your ability to see at night, the better your color vision. But it's a continuum. It's not a question of being either black and white in color. So they'll see some color, I'm sure, but they won't see color anything like you and I see color. Edward, do you want to know if mange ever troubles hyenas? I don't know a huge amount about mange. It definitely does affect some animals out here. I'm assuming it would affect hyenas. I'm also assuming that there are probably various different kinds of it that you get out here. I've definitely seen kudu seem to be the most poorly affected by what is probably a wide range of diseases that we loosely term mange. I've seen some hyenas that look pretty mangy. Whether they have one of those diseases or not, I'm not sure. But yes, I would imagine a hyena that was immunocompromised or was very stressed could well develop some sort of mange. Heather, you want to know, do these hyenas look so dirty, you said, and do they ever go off to the dam and have a swim and clean off? Well, I've got to tell you, most of the dams here would make them dirtier than they are now. No, hyena are much less fastidious about being clean than the cats, or probably even the wild dogs. So they often have a very grubby appearance, and they don't tend to swim or bath too much. And if they do go to the water, they tend to lie in the mud and get even dirtier. So the plan from here is to go onto the southern boundary and just hope against hope that maybe a lion has popped on. So Georgianne and Rave have asked two interesting questions that sort of dovetail into each other. So I'm going to ask them both, at least answer them both in sort of one. Georgianne reckons that she's read that the lowest ranking female in a hyena clan is still higher ranking than the highest ranking male. Georgianne, I would say as far as the adults go, that is true, because it's simply about size and strength. Out here it tends to be, you might have a business executive who's 5'6" and just very clever. Here your brain has got much less to do with how big you are, especially if you're not a primate. So because the females are bigger, that is going to be absolutely true. Now, leading on from that is Rave's question about what we call a pseudo-penis. Now, the pseudo-penis in the hyena and the spotted hyena, it's only the spotted hyena that has this, is a result apparently of, and it's not very well understood, but it's a result apparently of the females have more testosterone in them than the males, and something at birth or during the not at birth, but during the development process, that level of testosterone causes the clitoris to enlarge to this enormous pseudo-penis. And its major role is in greeting. So the female hyenas will actually give birth through the pseudo-penis. They will mate through it, but it doesn't. The only time you see it, or the only time it's ever extended, is during greeting, not during mating at all. So it's difficult to actually, and that's what makes it difficult to tell male from female if you don't see the smaller males with the females. What advantage it confers on them is difficult to say, and I'm not sure that I have an answer for that. Safe to say that because of the extra testosterone, and much might be a byproduct of that, and it has now become the organ that they use to greet each other. That's led to any number of awkward conversations on game drives with children, because parents tend to defer to the ranger to leave us to answer the questions. I'm going to defer to you parents out there to answer that for your own kids. Hello, Crystal in Texas. Another nice one. We were having a flood of excellent questions today. You want to know what's the relationship between hyenas and wild dogs? And I think you don't mean sort of genetically. I think mainly you mean in terms of their relationship in the predator hierarchy, and will they steal from each other? So just to clarify for those who perhaps don't know, the sort of overarching order that all of the predators here belong to is called Carnivora. Then there's a suborder called Caniformi, to which the dog-like ones belong, and there's one called Feliformi, to which the cat-like ones belong. Now, to those who don't know, the hyena belong to the Feliformi. They belong to the same suborder as all the cats do, and wild dogs, Caniformi, to the order that the dogs belong to. So they're not related at all. But just, Crystal, I think your question has more to do with the predator hierarchy. And the predator hierarchy out here indicates that first we've got lions on top. There's never a question about that. Then underneath that you will have the spotted hyena. And below that will be the wild dog. Now that order between the hyenas and the dogs and the lions, to a certain extent, can change dependent on number. So if you've got a whole lot of hyena or a small clan of hyena and a whole lot of wild dogs, what you'll find is that the dogs will dominate the hyenas, and they will steal kills, and they'll be able to chase hyenas off their own kills. But if you've got sufficient numbers of hyenas, and it's normally in a ratio of about 2 to 1, so if you've got fewer than 2 dogs to 1 hyena, the hyenas will be able to chase the dogs off their kills, and they often do follow dogs and try and chase them off their kills. So I hope that answers your question. There's no way that dogs or wild dogs will ever dominate lions, though. Not even one lion. Well, maybe one, but very unusual. Just got a question from Brent here. I'm just going to answer him. Go ahead, Brent. I took the road to Chelapan. I'm now in Trinidad. Copy that. Do you want me to check somewhere? Okay, copy that. So, our brave pal Brent has managed to find a leopard on foot, but it seems to have evaded him trying to find it in the vehicle. So that's what he's trying to do now. We're going to drive fairly slowly around this area just to make sure that we don't come up with any tracks that he might be looking for, like the ones, no, those are hyenas there. Hello, Jim. You want to know? Nice question. I like these ones that make me think, or try and make me think in the cold morning, warm up my brain. You want to know, without claws like lions have, how do wild dogs and hyenas bring down their prey? The answer is with their teeth. And that's not a facetious answer at all. Their claws, they don't use their claws so much because by the time they catch their prey, they've usually run them down to a state of fair exhaustion. And so they're not pouncers that sort of overpower and then bring their prey down. And they tend to run after them and harry them until they're so exhausted that they almost collapse. And it's actually a much lower risk strategy than that of, say, a lion. Lions get injured quite a lot through their hunting technique because they leap on the back. They leap onto the backs of animals and they can get quite badly injured. Right, we're going to cross over to Brent, see how he's doing. I'm not sure if he's managed to relocate the leopard, but we'll see you a little bit later.
Good morning, everyone. I know James has told you. I'm so excited. Sorry, my name's Brent. I got Andrew on camera with me. We're on a live safari. Just a quick update what I've been up to since we got going. We're following leopard tracks, and they were up and down in the area around Treehouse Dam, and I was convinced that the leopard was in the area. So I jumped off the vehicle and I tracked, and I managed to spot him from about 50 meters away. Unfortunately, he's in this really, really thick little drainage line, and we haven't been able to get a vehicle in there, and I think he might have moved off a little bit, so I'm just doing a loop around the block, but fingers crossed, hopefully we can find it. I wasn't able to see which leopard it was on foot, so I am secretly hoping it might be Djuma, but we never know. So I'm going to keep checking around and see what we can find. So welcome, and hopefully we have some leopard luck shortly.
Morning, Tax. I managed to look like one got it anywhere on Inyao, just to the west of Treehouse Dam. Busy trying to relocate them over at the moment. Copy, thanks, Tax. Tax, if you can check Philemon's dip, I think we might have crossed Savage's track into that block there, just make sure he hasn't come out that side. So what we're doing is I'm hoping he's popped out onto one of the roads. I'm checking tracks, and I've just got Taxon who's just getting moving. He is going to come give us a hand in this area, so he can cover that northern side
that gives us a much better chance of finding this animal. So if you are a new viewer, welcome. We are tracking leopards live at Djuma Private Game Reserve. You are able to ask me questions about what we're doing and what we see in the bush. You can do this by emailing us questions@WildEarthTV or use the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Come on, kitty cats. So if you're new, you'll often see my head disappear off the vehicle, and when I do that, I'm looking for the footprints of the animals. So that helps us find them, and tracking cats is one of my favorite things to do in the whole wide world. It's always such an amazing experience being able to find an animal like a leopard on foot, and especially from following its footprints, not sort of just bumping into it. It's a almost otherworldly experience for me personally. Hi, Gail from Calgary. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Gail. Gail would like to know if I've ever had to sleep out in the bush unplanned, and if so, do I have any advice? Gail, unfortunately, I have quite a few times. The best advice is normally to do with vehicle issues, and in places like northern Botswana and southern Tanzania, it's a little bit different from here. You're not surrounded by so many people. Your one concession can be the same size as 4 of the whole Sabi Sands, and you were the only people in it. So the general rule is, most important thing, depending on what time of the day it is, if it's in the late afternoon or early evening, first important rule is stay with the car. Don't try walk at night. You will become a snack, possibly for a cat, or walk into a hippo or elephant while you can't see, or buffalo for that matter. First rule is stay with the car. Secondly, the most important thing is always carry some extra water in your vehicle, and that can come in very handy, especially in places like Botswana. The aardvark's just getting rid of some of the dust. Water is probably the most important commodity. I've had to drink out of a body of water that's a very similar state to the water here in the dry season. So I think you're mostly drinking elephant urine, but it keeps you going to the next decent water. Okay. So we saw the leopard down here in the thickets around that large jackalberry. So I was walking from the dam up the drainage line, and we're just going to loop around, make sure I can't find any tracks coming out, and if that's the case, we're going to go do a bit of bundu bashing, see if he hasn't just snuck off and laid down somewhere close by. And then, Gail, just to end off on your question there, and obviously very important is most important is water. Even if you do have to drink elephant urine and buffalo urine out of a pan, that water is what will keep you alive. So food's not nearly as important as water. You can happily go a week without food, but you won't last a day in some of those areas without water. Hi Marianne from North Carolina. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari, Marianne. Just give me a sec, Marianne. I got to chat on the Game Drive channel for a second. Go ahead. Not yet, Tex. I've just checked Treehouse Dam Road. I'm going to go back into the block now to where I last had visual. James was there earlier. It was active earlier, but I don't think it's active anymore, but you're more than welcome to check. I was fumbling sort of north. I can't find the Nkonzo crossing Savage's track, but I think maybe just check Savage's track again and I'll go into the block. Philemon's Catland side. There, just to let you know, there's lots of Nkonzo up and down here on the Ndlela, but I haven't found any crossing straight north across Savages. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm just chatting to Tax, who's checking the other side to make sure the leopard hasn't done a sneaky puff at her and disappeared out that side. So Marianne would like to know, aren't we at risk in an open vehicle like this? Why won't the big cats come in and take us out? Marianne, it's actually quite an interesting discussion about that, which I'll get to in a second. Just to let you guys know, this is where I left the aardvark up on the road there, and I followed the tracks down this game path and then up onto this game path here, and sort of as I came around the corner I picked up a little movement. I just saw the white of the leopard's tail, and I was about here when I spotted the leopard, and the leopard was I'm just also going to listen as well for a second. And the leopard was probably there at that first set of trees that you can see there now. So probably about 50 meters. Sorry, I'm just going to get back on the Game Drive channel. Standing by, Andrew. Sorry, go again. Andrew, please go again with your message. Okay, copy, thanks. Yeah, just let you know, I found a Ingwe on in Nyao. I'm just trying to relocate at the moment now. So this is where he was, and he moved off through here. So I'm hoping that maybe we've done the loop around, that he's lying in a thicket here somewhere. He was just hiding from me while I was on foot.
So Marianne, back to your questions. I'm just going to take a gander and check behind this termite mound. You never know. Even though when I saw the leopard he was moving off this way, I'm going to just check around the back of this termite mound. So Marianne was wondering about why we don't get attacked in these open vehicles by the big cats. Well, Marianne, it's very simple. The big cats and human beings have an understanding, and that is an understanding built on evolution. We all developed into our current form around the same time, which was about 200,000 years ago, more, give or take, a millennia or two. Man was developed into the dominant diurnal predator, and an animal's reaction to man during the day and at night is very different. At night the animals are quite bold, specifically lions, and we form part of their natural prey at night time. But during the day we are dominant over lions, and they will normally run away from you when you walk into them, and the same goes for leopards. So when I managed to find this leopard, he would just try to sneak away without me seeing him, rather than attacking me. Sometimes when you surprise each other at close range, you can get a warning charge. There's no such thing as a mock charge. The animal's warning you that you are too close. Really hoping to be hiding under one of these bushes. Just checking carefully under any little bit of cover. So as I was saying about the warning charge, there's no such thing as a mock charge. But generally they will move away from you during the day. And that means if you're experienced, and also very important things like you never run or do stuff like that. If you run, it can incite an animal's instinct to chase and charge, but that's on foot. Now if we go onto the vehicles, it's a very different thing. A vehicle's only been around for just over 100 years, and animals do not have an instinctive response to vehicles. So if you've taught them basically by driving respectfully, not threatening them, don't drive straight at them. Listen for a second while we finish off this question, in case we hear an alarm call of some kind. So while we're in the vehicle, the animals have sort of learnt, and a vehicle doesn't pose a threat to them. It also doesn't smell like anything edible. It smells like petrol and oil, and even humans. What you got there? Oh, no. Humans, to a degree, don't smell what an animal would instinctively think humans to smell like. We smell like soap and deodorant and washing powder and all sorts of strange things like that. Just excuse me for a second, I've got chat to text. How's it for? No thanks for. I saw him next to this jackalberry here, and he was moving this way, but now there's Munti there. When I found him now. And this is my Chimba block. You can, I've tried it once, but maybe again, might have moved that way. I'm going to keep trying to go through the block here. I'll go try zigzag up to Shibam. Alright, thanks Tax. Sorry about that. So, just there goes. Tax is going to go check around where we've just checked, because we're quite certain
that there's leopards here. And that animal Andrew just showed you was a little duiker, one of the favorite foods of leopard. But it is quite possible the leopard's still lying here very close by and hasn't spotted the duiker, or the duiker hasn't spotted the leopard yet. But sorry, back to end up on that story about why we don't get attacked in the vehicles. So the vehicles don't smell like anything, and because we drive respectfully and treat and carefully around the animals, they don't have a negative connotation with vehicles. In other places where they have been pushed and stressed by vehicles, they can sometimes develop a negative connotation, which either means they run away or try warning charge or even full charge. But one of the most amazing things about that is if I were to stand up in a big cat or even elephant sighting or even next to a zebra and I gave that sort of bipedal upright figure of man, they would instinctively recognize that, and that can cause them to run away or it can cause them to become aggressive, neither of which we want. So as long as we're careful and respectful in the vehicles, we shouldn't have big cats climbing in to claw us out. It has happened in the past, but it's in other places and that, but that is generally human error and not animal error. Morning, Patricia from San Diego. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Patricia, we're just going to edge on a little bit, see if we can find this leopard. Patricia would like to know a little bit more about what it's like to track on foot. Well, Patricia, it is for me one of the best things to do in the bush, specifically tracking sort of big cats. It's always a little heightened excitement. Fortunately for me, I've been doing this. I think the first time I walked into a lion, I must have been about 10 years old with my dad. So I've had a lot of teachers over the years, including trackers, other guides, my dad, my grandfather, who have taught me how to behave in those situations. I know this might sound a little bit strange to a lot of you out there, but I don't think I ever feel more alive than when I'm charged by a big male lion. It's an amazing experience, and they generally stop, but they can stop as close as sort of 3 or 4 meters. And I like when I'm by myself, not when I've got the responsibility for other people. When I'm by myself, I choose not to walk with a firearm. And it's a very old philosophy, simple philosophy of my dad's. If you're not comfortable walking there without a firearm, you should never walk there with a firearm. It gives you a false sense of security. You should rely on your experience and knowledge to be able to get out of those potentially dangerous situations. But it is, if all your senses are heightened, you listen a lot more carefully. Your eyes are flicking under bushes, just checking everything a lot more carefully. You smell everything. You sort of a much more heightened sense of awareness. So, for example, as soon as I get off the vehicle, track on foot, I'll take a beanie off. I just don't want anything around my ears. I want to be able to hear everything that's around me. So, I don't know. I'm trying to think the best way to explain it. You're definitely more at one with your surroundings and nature than you are in a vehicle. You're never going to be able to have the fantastic sightings we do on foot from the point of view that most animals will run away from you on foot. Whereas in a vehicle, you can approach them very closely, and that's because they don't have that instinctive response. But for me, it's sort of I'm more connected to the ground, and it's a very special feeling for me. And strangely enough, I actually prefer walking by myself most of the time than with people, for a couple of reasons. It's sort of my little special time that I get by myself out in the bush, and also it means I don't have to worry about making sure other people are safe. I trust my instincts and judgments on foot in the bush, so it's always difficult when you have to worry about someone else.
And I definitely, you definitely move differently through the bush when you've got people with you to when you by yourself. I hope that gives you a little idea, Patricia, about tracking on foot. Now let's hopefully we can find this leopard again. So while the aardvark and I scour this block between, or it's actually more of a triangle between these roads, we're going to cross back to Commander Bond and see what he's been up to, and hopefully when we get back we would have managed to find this leopard.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Djuma. We've come to the far eastern boundary of the reserve. I believe Brent is currently harrying the bush in his attempts to find the leopard, and if anyone's going to find it, it's him. So I think it's best to leave him be for a little while. We've stopped here, Viam and I, because there were a whole lot of squirrels on this knobthorn tree. Excuse the frog in my throat. And the squirrels have disappeared into their little hole, which is extremely unkind of them. But all along this cut line we found knobthorn trees like this with squirrels. They're obviously, you can see there where the elephant has torn off the bark, and what that does is open the wood up to wood borer beetles, makes it easier for things like woodpeckers to drill holes in it. And once the wood borers get in and the woodpeckers have drilled a couple of holes, the fungus and bacteria and other pathogens can get in there and eat away at the heartwood, and then there are lovely little spots for things like squirrels to go and live, the odd snake of course, but squirrels and snakes won't live together. And the hole is just where Viam is now framing the fork of the tree there, and so the knobthorns seem to be the ideal sort of tree for squirrels because of that, the property of the heartwood to give way to pathogens. Doesn't happen so much with marula trees. They tend to heal a lot better than these knobthorns do. It's always amazed me how brilliant a marula tree is at recovering from elephant damage compared to the knobthorn. Can we just look at the marula tree to the side, to the right-hand side of that knobthorn tree? Now, that tree there has been mangled. If you look at it, it's been broken once, twice, 3, 4, say 6 or 7 times. It's been torn to pieces by elephants, and yet it has managed to heal every single time. I mean, that thing, that is the scraggliest marula tree I've ever seen, but it's managed to recover somehow as from the elephant damage. Now the knobthorn just doesn't manage to do that. As soon as you push them over, they die. Or you can ring bark them pretty easily because the bark comes off in these huge strips. So I suspect that's why you don't find squirrels living in marula trees quite as much as you do in the knobthorns, because the knobthorns tend to not recover quite so well. Right, so while I've been yakking on about squirrels, we haven't actually seen any, so I think we're going to press on from here and see if we can't find something else magnificent to show you on this rather magnificent morning. The other advantage of being where we are, of course, is that we're quite high up. Right, we're going straight back to Brent because he's managed to find the leopard. I told you he would. Enjoy it, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Perseverance pays off. Thanks to the eyes of the aardvark, while I was getting out of the car and fiddling with my earpiece and stuff to go off and check the tracks, Andrew went, leopard, leopard, leopard! I literally nearly stood on his tail as I got out of the vehicle. We found him now. I'm not 100% sure which leopard it is. He looks like quite a big male, so we're going to have a quick look. So please, could you guys try ID him for me? Let me know which leopard this is.
I have my suspicions, but I'm not going to say just yet. He's unfortunately lying in a bit of a thicket. But my heart rate definitely jumped up a 2, and I had a beat of 2, and I had a leopard about 2 meters from me. Sorry guys, I just need to get on the game drive radio to get tax in here. In between the two Shkovas. Best access I think will be off Savage's track. Just judging from the way he reacted when he was 2 meters from me, he didn't run off in an absolute panic. He sort of calmly skulked away from us. But really exciting. My heartbeat's definitely going, and I think the Art Fox is as well.
It's going.
So awesome. I'm not sure who he is, as I said now. It looked like quite a big male, but I'm not so convinced at the moment. I'm trying to see if I can see any distinguishing features that I can recognize. I'm just going to try and move the vehicle a little. Let's see if we can get a better view. He is lying in a bit of a difficult spot. How's that for camouflage? No wonder I didn't see him when I jumped off the car. Let's try to see if we can get away through there. Oh, there we go. I think that's going to be our best option. We're going to have to go. So we're just going to have to go a little bit further away from him. If I went through that other gap, I might lose Andrew to a buffalo thorn, and he'll be very upset with me. Watch out. Another buffalo thorn stalking you. Looks like he's on the move again. Of course, just to exactly where we came from. So I'll try to stay with him. I'm not sure if he's definitely not sure who he is just yet, so if any of you guys manage to get some distinguishing features on this leopard, I'd really appreciate it. And remember, you can send those through to questions at WildEarthTV or use the hashtag SafariLive on Twitter. I'm not going. He's not moving, so he's paying little attention to the vehicle. He's just keeping still and listening now. Can just see him over the front. I don't want to push any closer through this bush, so I don't want to give him a fright. So he's just there off the front of our vehicle, probably about 8-9 feet. There he goes, moving again. So you can see there, as he turned his head, there was quite a big dewlap. Jody and Lisa also possibly Tingana, and I would have to agree with you. That was my initial guess. He is moving through a terrible block at the moment. We're just going to keep slowly trying to keep with him. Takes no mobile south. I think it's Tingana. I still think best access is from Savages, but he is moving towards Shabam, but quite slowly.
But this is very thick bush here. Okay. Do you hear Texas? Yeah, it looks like he's Lalapanzi again. So keep coming. I'm gonna, if you switch off, you'll hear my audio moving now to try to get into position to get a bit of view. So we've definitely had some bit of feedback in the Twitter sphere that isn't Tingana the expert aardvark killer? Shouldn't Andrew be a little bit worried sitting on the back? And congratulations to Andrew for being an expert leopard spotter. I'm going to have a little jump over this dead log. And it looks like thankfully he's decided to lie up in a far more open area than he was before. I'm gonna move around. I'm not sure whether, now having second doubt whether it's Tingana. For me his face isn't pale enough, but now that we've got him out in the open, maybe we can have a better look. Maybe it just looks a little bit younger to me. Just from that side profile there. I'm going to try to get some spot patterns. And I do. Let me just help Tex get in. Tex, if you come towards that Shadulu, it's the most open. Still trying to figure out who it is. As I said, I'm not 100% convinced it's Tingana anymore. I just saw that big dewlap, but he does look a little bit younger. But then again, I might be wrong. Having a look now. Now that he's turned his face. I'm just checking the spot patterns on a photo I took a while ago. And yeah, it is definitely Tingana. So and now this is very much deep within Mvula's territory. Very deep within Mvula's territory, in fact. We're around Treehouse Dam. And this is the furthest sort of east I've seen Tingana so far. So Blair, well done. You and I seem to be on the same track this morning. Wondering whether he is in Mvula's traditional territory. No problem, Tex. Actually, I stopped to walk again.
Yeah.
I got out of the car and he was next to me. So it looks like he's quite well fed at the moment. And then I know James and I had this discussion on the fireside chat on Sunday.
that we think Mvula may be a little bit older, but it's very difficult to say than the 10 years old. I mean, here we've got a 9-year-old leopard. Again, almost impossible to say unless we'd spent 9 years with the animal, but looks in better condition, more prime than Mvula, and there isn't much age gap according to the information we have between them. Well, morning Ellen, and thanks very much. Ellen says one of his ID traits is small vertical slashes in the spot pattern above his right eye. And he's got a really distinct spot pattern as well that we normally look at, which is the last line above the whiskers. And he has got very distinct, he's a 4-5, which is quite a lot of spots for that top whisker. Sorry, a 5-4, right side first, 5-4. We'll show you a bit later, but let's look at him now. And so quite interesting, on Djuma in the last 24 hours we've seen both big male leopards. James had a Mvula around Buffelshoek Dam yesterday, and now we've got Tingana here at Treehouse Dam. And for me, this is the furthest east I've ever seen this leopard. But Tax, who's been here a lot longer than me, I'm just going to ask him if he's ever seen him further than this. Never. Mvula's in trouble. Yeah. So also Tax, who's been here for how many years now, Mvula? 8 years. Has never seen Tingana this far east. So really interesting stuff that's happening with the leopard dynamics at the moment. It could be a changing of the guards. So actually quite exciting for me. This is the first time I've actually walked Tingana on foot. I've walked the other leopards quite a few times, but this is the first time I've tracked and found Tingana on foot. So that's really, really cool for me. Morning Edward, welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Edward would like to know if there's any reason why the animals don't respond to our voices. Well Edward, you must remember in this part of the world the animals have grown up with the vehicles from when they were very small, and many years ago a very long and concerted effort was taken to habituate the leopards and lions, and also because it's coming out of context, and also from that evolutionary fact, instinctually when humans, when we lived on the African savannas, would come across a big predator, there'd be a lot of shouting and screaming and threatening sounds, whether it's at the moment, now we keep our voices low and calm, and that's another reason. If we had to start screaming or shouting in high-pitched voices, there would definitely be a reaction from the leopard, whether it be either to run away or to possibly come have a closer look because there's possibly animal in distress. Well, it looks like he's on the move, and this is going to wander right past Tax's vehicle. Peggy would like to know if I saw whether he had any blood on his neck from eating. Peggy, I didn't. I did see some sort of little blood splotches on his neck, but I think that was more from a scratch, and he might have popped a few ticks while he was scratching his neck. That's what it looked like to me. So he's walked directly behind Tax, so at the moment we're all stuck. So we're going to take this opportunity to try and get some of the dust off the lens while we move. So he's right behind Tax's vehicle, and as soon as we get the chance, we will be following on. Let's see if we can find a gap. Alright, Mark, watch out for the buffalo forward.